Hi everyone, and welcome to our webcast, Unleashing Freeform Modeling in Autodesk Inventor. Our presenter today is Jennifer McMillan. Jennifer, the floor is yours.
Hello everyone. As Corinne mentioned, I'm Jennifer. I'm the Instructional Design Project Manager with ASCENT, and basically what that title involves is that I manage all of the curriculum development for the Autodesk products with ASCENT, and specifically myself, I focus on the manufacturing products. So Inventor is definitely one of my favorite softwares, so I'm going to spend some time today talking about a brand new feature in Inventor 2015 called Freeform Modeling. I'm sure many of you have heard about it, and maybe some of you haven't quite yet used it, so I wanted to show you a bit about it. So to get started, what I'll be doing today is I'll be teaching content out of our Advanced Part Modeling class. So with the introduction of this software, I have now created a new chapter within this book, and it's all entitled Freeform Modeling, and it's chapter 13 of the book. So in terms of our objectives today, I want to focus on teaching you about the 5 freeform geometry base shapes. So we're going to start with that. And then also, the most importantly, is how to edit those. So to actually get the geometry that you want out of those base shapes. So I bet some of you are wondering, what is freeform modeling? So freeform modeling is basically another paradigm of modeling. So it's a different workflow to our parametric modeling that everyone is used to, where we create dimensions and all of those parametrics within our model. Freeform modeling is basically enables you to freeform and push and pull surfaces to create the models that you need and you want for your design. So you can see here I've got 4 different models on my screen, and you can see each of them look very organic and highly shaped. And right now, if you think back into how you might be able to create this with a parametric modeling workflow, it'd be very complex. You would have to create a lot of curves, you'd have to create a lot of surfacing, create solids from the surfacing, and do it that way. But what we're going to focus on today is actually creating all of this geometry directly using the one modeling paradigm, the freeform modeling. In terms of actually using this, there is a command on the 3D Model tab, and it basically enables you to create all of these base shapes. So I mentioned 5 base shapes, and you can see that I've got them all circled here. So we have all 5 of them shown here. So I have my box, my cylinder, a sphere, a torus, and a quad ball. And basically what you do is you create one of each of these, or one of them, and then you start modeling from there. So the way you would choose which one you would want to use would be simply something that closely resembles what your ultimate geometry is going to look like. So in terms of actually creating this base feature, this base freeform model, you follow a basic set of about 8 different general steps. And no matter which type you create, this set of steps are identical. So when you're presented with the dialog box to create it, in this case I'm showing you the box dialog box, it presents you with a bunch of different commands in it. And I'll just step you through basically the general steps, and then I'm going to show you this actually in a demonstration. So we'll walk right through it. So you select your type. So in this case, we chose that we wanted a box type. And then just like with a parametric model, you would decide what plane you want to sketch on. So what we do here, we're going to choose our work plane. And this is the plane that you're going to place the shape. So that's step 2. Also what's needed here is a center point. So I also pick a center point. And if you look at my preview model down here, you can see this little dot right here. And that little dot is my center point. And that's basically just creating the center of the whole freeform shape. Once you've assigned these 3 items, what's going to happen is your preview is going to appear. So you're going to get that purple model that I've shown here. Okay, so that's the preview. And from here, you're then going to work directly on the model or within the dialog box to actually manipulate the shape. So you'll see these different drag handles. So there's 3 of them, 1 in each direction. So you could select any of those 3 handles and actually drag out that freeform shape. You could also enter that value directly in the dialog box if you wanted exact values. So you can see I've got them checked there. You can enter them all there. So that's defining the actual size of your shape. The next thing you want to define is the number of faces. And this is a really key option because what you want to do here is you want to define how many control. Basically, you're defining the mesh on the Freeform model. So right now the default is set to 2, 2, and 2. So it's actually creating 2 faces in one direction, the other direction, and also in the third direction. And then on the right-hand model, you can see here that that's been increased. So I've got 4 going along this direction, 3 here, and 2 here. Okay, so you can define whatever you'd like there in terms of faces to help manipulate the model in a future step. Symmetry. Symmetry is also something you can control in the dialog box, and this is something that does have to be done directly in the dialog box and not on the model. And basically you're allowing it to assign a length symmetry, width symmetry, and height symmetry. And so when you get to actually editing this geometry, that then controls whether or not a change on one side reflects on the other in the mirror side. And then the third option is the direction. So very similar to what you're used to seeing with an extrude, whether or not the model is created on one side or on both sides of the sketch plane. Okay, and once you complete that feature, you select OK. The next thing that appears is you start to actually see something in your model browser. So I've got it circled here, and you can see that a form feature has been added to the model. And that's what you're going to see whenever you add Freeform model features. So that was the box type of Freeform model. And then, like I mentioned, there's 4 other types. And I've got the dialog boxes shown here. But what I really just want to focus on here is that these dialog boxes all look very much the same. It's asking for dimensions. It's asking for the number of faces. So you can see here, faces, faces as well, in all these different dialog boxes. Symmetry, you can see X, Y, and Z symmetry in all of the other dialog boxes as well. And then really the only one here that is only specific to both the box and the cylinder is the direction. Okay, in terms of the anything circular, once you pick your center point, it actually just creates it from there. So you're not creating a direction from your center, your sketch plane. Okay, now a couple key points here I want to talk about, really 2. The faces, I've already mentioned that in terms of entering the faces. That is what's going to end up driving that mesh, the size of your mesh, and all of the lines and the points and things. So always consider that. Once you've actually selected OK, there's no way to go back and modify that. There are tools that will allow you to actually add edges and points and things like that. But in terms of actually editing the base feature, there's no way to do any kind of manipulation to that. And the other one is that this symmetry. So all of these symmetry commands in the dialog boxes, this is all created in the base feature. Once created in the base feature, it is maintained for the life of that feature. There's no way to actually remove that symmetry. However, there is a way, using some of the editing tools, to apply symmetry temporarily. So we'll talk about that as well. But just something to keep in mind when you create your base feature is to make sure you're sure about the symmetry that you're going to want in your model. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to flip to Inventor, and I want to create a couple of Freeform models. So you can see here I've got 2 shapes that I'm going to create, one using the box and one using the cylinder. So here I am in Inventor. This is Inventor 2015. Brand new is this Freeform Modeling tab, or sorry, the 3D Model tab, the Freeform Model panel. So you can see I've got it circled here, so that's the new functionality. So I've got a box part created, and I'm actually going to work with this model. It's just basically started for us. It's the default template. And I'm going to go into this Freeform panel, and I'm going to select the box option. Okay, so once that appears, you can see that I can select my sketch plane. So I'm going to select on the XY plane, and the next selection was the center point. So I'm going to pick my center point, at which point the preview does appear. It's given enough information that the preview can be displayed. And these are those drag handles that I talked about. And if you look at them, when you select on one, it turns gold when it's active. So here I can drag this. I could select on this top one and drag it as well. And I could select on any of them. So there's the third one. Now I want to actually enter my specific values because I know the size of my box that I want. And there are the three sizes that I have assigned, so a length, a width, and a height. And in terms of my direction, I'm just going to accept the single direction, so it's going on the one side. I'm also going to change the number of faces. So you saw that right now it defaults to 2, 2, and 2. I'm going to add 4 faces on in the length, 4 faces in the width, and then I'm just going to bump this up to 3. So it just gives me a few more control lines to manipulate. And then the symmetry. So I mentioned symmetry. And what's really nice here is as you actually hover your mouse over any of these options, you can see the symmetry plane that's going to be assigned. So you can roll over it. I'm going to actually just assign width symmetry to this model. And then I'm going to select OK. And you can see that my base feature has been created. So my very first feature in the model is a freeform feature. So once I've done that now, you can see that some of the extra commands are now available. So all of my editing tools are available. And the one I want to point you to is this smooth toggle option. Okay, so this is really just a display option is all it is. It's actually not changing the geometry. So when I select it, you can see it changes it to a box type of look. Okay, and they call that blocky mode. But you can see it's smooth here, and then it goes to block mode. Okay, so this is just a display type. You know, in my experience, the only time that I really see any kind of real use for this is if I had a really large model, and it would allow and help improve performance on the model, getting rid of the smooth and just working in the block mode. Anyway, so if I was to click Finish Freeform, so to get out of this model, or sorry, this environment, you can see that the freeform model gets created. And also now all of my other tools, so all of the other tools in the 3D Model tab are now available. So while I was in the freeform environment, those were not available to me. Okay, so cylinder. So I mentioned 2 different models that I wanted to create. So again, I'm going to go into my freeform panel. I'm going to select the cylinder option this time. And just like my box, I'm going to place it on the XY plane. I'm also going to select my midpoint, my center point, sorry. I'm going to drag this out just a little bit just to remind you that you can control it with the drag handles. And I'm just going to enter some values here in my dialog box. Okay, so I have that. Now you can see, just pay attention here to the shape of my actual freeform model here. When I increase the number of faces, it actually does refine the shape of the model. So when I change this to 8 now, you should see a bit of a change to the model. Oh, sorry, I actually wanted to change the height value, so I'm going to keep that radius at 4, and then I changed the height, and you can see that now it's rounded out a little nicer and a little smoother. So actually adding those faces controlled, changed the, smoothed out the model a little bit. In terms of my direction, I'm going to do it on both sides, and I'm going to leave all my symmetry alone. I'm not going to have any symmetry assigned, and I'm going to select OK. And again, with this one, I'm going to click Finish Freeform. Get back into my 3D modeling environment, and you can see that the model has appeared. So over in my model browser, I now see this freeform, the freeform node right here. Okay, so that's what I wanted to show you with the 2 demonstrations. Now I'm going to flip back over to my PowerPoint presentation, and I'm going to continue on, because what's key, once you've actually created your shapes, you need to manipulate those shapes. And I had shown you once I created them that the rest of the tools were available. And what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to talk about all of these editing tools. So I'm going to break it up in a couple of different presentations and show you about a few of them and then demo them. But those are the ones that we're going to talk about in the next remaining hour. So with the creation of your model, you've created a bunch of faces. And faces, as you can see here, are pointed. That becomes, it's an entire area. That's a whole face. Points are the intersection between the different edges, and edges are the actual edges that are generated by the creation of the faces. So each of those entities are able to be manipulated in order to change the shape of your model. With freeform modeling, because there's no parametrics, all of the history, there's no history recorded when you're making these changes. So as you push and pull and make changes to the model, none of that history is actually recorded within the model, within the actual freeform feature. So what's key there is that you want to make sure that you've made the changes you're going to make, and when you finish the freeform model that it's done. Undo is still available, so if you were to do undo up in the top in the status bar, you can still do that, but that is only until you actually save the model. So that's just something consistent with what Inventor does. So the first of our editing tools is probably the one you'll use the most, and what actually is definitely the coolest and enables you to make all of the manipulations to the model. And this is the Edit Form dialog box. Okay, so that's the Edit command. And what this does, it enables you to select points and edges and faces and bodies, so the whole thing, or loops of edges, all of which then accesses the manipulator triad. And this triad, and you can see it that I've got it highlighted here, that triad is what is used then to drag out any of the selected entities. Okay, so basically there's a 5-step process here. You select your entity type, whether it's an edge or a point. You filter out any of the manipulator types. So let's say you wanted to manipulate the model along, let's say, translation only. You could turn off the display of the rotation or the scaling manipulators. You can also define your space settings, and that's how the change is made to the model. You can change your triad location, and that is a command that is right in here. And then as well, you can change your display, and that again goes back and forth between that smooth model and the block model. Okay, so those are the different editing tools. The best way to show you this is actually in Inventor, so we'll get to that in 1 second, and I will actually walk through that. So I mentioned all of the manipulators, and this is what I really want you to learn here, because there are a lot of them here. So you can see that the image on the left-hand side here, this shows all of the types. Okay, and then we refine them over here on the right-hand side. And this one is showing only translation, only rotation, and only scaling. And with any of these three, what you're doing is you're selecting arrows, you're selecting planes to make changes to translation. So you're translating in a plane or translating along an axis. You can also rotate using these little circular entities, and that's going to rotate in a certain plane. And then the third one, in terms of scaling, you can scale in a direction, so in an axis, or in a plane as well. So selecting any of these will do the same thing. Okay, so those are the manipulator handles. Along with just dragging and pushing and pulling, you can actually enter values. So you'll see a mini toolbar that appears on your screen, and here's a little example here in this image. And this is basically allowing you to enter the actual translation value. At any time you can reset or clear all of the commands and changes you've made. Undo, redo, I mentioned that, they work as well. Okay, the next command is subdivide. So I mentioned how important it was when you created your base feature that you needed to define the number of faces that you were going to work with. So it's going to drive the number of entities that were going to be created as well as the line entities. At some point you might find that you actually need to break it up a little further, and this is where subdivide comes in. And what subdivide enables you to do then is to select an existing face and then add more faces to it. So more faces also implies that more edges and points would be created as well. So I'm going to show you this basically in these images. And you can see in the left-hand image here, I have a face that was created. Prior to this one created, there was probably some entities deleted as well, which we'll talk about as well. But so this is a wide open area here, and we want to break this down a little bit more. And the goal here is to add 3 more faces in both the width and the length. And you can see here on these two images on the right-hand side, so the center one and the right-hand side, you can see that I have 3 added in this direction and 3 added in this direction. Now the difference between these two models is something that is determined with the mode, and that is simple or exact. So my middle one is simple mode, and then the right-hand one is exact mode. And what that's doing is, while it's placing 3 entities or 3 faces in both directions, it does that when it's simple mode, it does it, and it will have to actually manipulate the shape of your geometry. So you can see there's a difference in the geometry between my starting point and my ending point once those faces were added. With the third option, which is exact mode, it will still add just the 3 faces. However, it also adds whatever else it needs in order to maintain the actual shape. So you can see that my shape between the first and the third image are the same. Okay, so really your design intent really matters here. If you've made a lot of changes, a lot of manipulations to the model, you might want to force the exact mode so that you're not losing any of that shape. However, the other thing that you have to watch for is that it's probably going to create a lot of extra control and a lot of extra meshing on your model. So really just a balance in terms of what you want. And what's really nice here is that you can toggle between the two to see if it's going to give you what you want. Insert edge is another control that can be used to add an edge. So this model here that I have on my left-hand side, you can see that the reference edge was selected. So this is the reference edge here in the center. And what I'm doing is I'm adding 2 edges on either side of it. Okay, so it's basically using this location area right here with a value of 0.5. So it's a normalized value between the reference edge and the next edge it would actually come in contact with. So it's placing it at 0.5 between those two. So you can enter that value. You can also decide whether you want it on one side or both sides. So in this situation, both sides would have been selected. And again, you have those 2 options for simple and exact. So in the example I've got here, you can see that this is my simple mode and this is my exact mode. You can see the shape, how it varies in order to create those and insert those edges for me. And then delete. Delete, once you've actually created your mesh, you might find you have too many entities or maybe too many points, that type of thing. You can actually delete things. So the controls for delete are shown here. You can delete points and edges as well as an entire body or even a loop of edges. Okay, so those are the different commands here. And if you look at my model below, you can see that I've got kind of done this on the top and on the side. On the top, I've selected a bunch of edges to be deleted. So you can see I've just highlighted them in red. And they've been removed. And then on the side, I've actually picked points. Okay, and when it does that, it actually has to also delete the edges that go into those points. So you can see the difference between what's done on the top here and what's done on the side here. Okay, and that's the delete command. Okay, so now it's demonstration 2, and what I want to do is show those commands that I just talked about. So edit form, the subdivide command, delete, and insert. Okay, so to start with here, I'm going to start with the box that I had created in my previous example. I'm just going to excuse myself for 1 second. And what I want to do now is I'm going to edit this base form. So to do that, I can see that I have the element, the node in my model browser. I'm going to right-click on that, and I'm going to select Edit Freeform. And when I edit that, you can see now, if you look at the top there in my toolbar, I have now got all of the 3D modeling commands, the parametric tools are all grayed out, and all I have available are the ones for Freeform. Okay, so that's great. And what I want to do now is I actually want to open the edit form, and this is all the editing tools that we just talked about, and I'm going to start the edit form dialog box. This is the command I want to show you to start with. So in this dialog box, we have at the top a bunch of different selection tools, and right now by default it selects to all. Okay, and with that all option, it means that I can hover my mouse anywhere over faces, I can hover over edges, or over points. Okay, that's the default option. But if, let's say, I had a really large model with lots of big mesh and I'm finding it difficult to select what I want, I can refine and filter that by, say, point only. And then when I'm hovering, you can see it's not picking up faces, it's only picking up points. Okay, and I can do the same thing for faces. So those are the selection tool filters that are available. I'm going to leave it on all so I can select everything. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a point. So I'm going to basically manipulate from here. And this is the manipulator triad that appears. I'm going to make this a little smaller so you can see the triad a little bit better. And here are the filters for the triad. So right now all of the triads are appearing. If I filter it down to translation only, you can see that I've got only the translation ones, rotation, and scaling. I don't mind working with all of them at once, so I'm going to keep that displayed. And from here, I'm going to drag my translation. So you can see I'm pulling my point up here. I'm going to drop it somewhere around there. And you can see that now my model has manipulated. I can move over and select a face this time and do a very similar thing. I'm going to drag up. You can see now I've got a bit of a neat shape there. And that was just by pushing and pulling one edge and one face. Now, if you look, when I selected this face on this corner, it actually manipulated the other corner as well, and that was because of symmetry. And that was the symmetry that I created when I actually created that box. And you know that you have symmetry in your model if you can notice. See how this gray line kind of going down the middle? It's gray as opposed to the other ones that are black. That's indicating symmetry. Okay. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to pick a face down here. And this time I'm going to rotate. I'm going to go down and just show the rotate translation here. And I'm going to show you how you just select the ball, and you can see I drag up. And I'm just going to drag, let's say, to 25 degrees. And it actually manipulated that. If I rotate my model, you can kind of see how the surface has changed. Okay, so I can keep going. The last one I'm going to do here is I'm going to modify an edge. So I'm going to select that edge. I'm going to turn it to translation because I'm going to want to translate it. But when I push or pull this one edge, you can see how it kind of manipulates what it has to. So it takes into account kind of some moving of the other edges along it. But I actually want to do a little more than that. I'm going to hit undo here. And I actually want to manipulate the entire loop of that edge. So I'm going to go back over to my dialog box and select the loop option. And you can see that all of the loop has now selected. And I can pull that edge all the way out. And you can see how the whole model shifts forward. Okay. And then I can select OK, and there's my form. So I'll spin it around for you, and you can see how it's kind of manipulated a lot. Definitely not looking at all like the box that I created, and that was simply by pushing and pulling and using that edit form dialog. The next thing I want to do is I want to subdivide. So my design intent is changing a little bit, and I need to do a little bit more manipulation in this area. And the faces that I have existing just aren't going to cut it for me. So what I want to do is use subdivide. I'm going to select my face. And you can see that the default of adding two faces in the width and the length have been applied. So you can see here I have now 4 faces in here. And because of symmetry, it also applied them on the other side. I'm going to zoom in a little so you can see that. So you can see now I have all 4 of them created on both sides. And that's simple and exact. So I'm going to change it to exact for you. And you'll see how when I do this, a lot more of meshing is assigned, so a lot more edges. But in terms of what I want right now, I'm not too concerned about the actual shape. I'm more concerned about having too many control vertices and edges, so I'm going to leave it at simple, and I can make manipulations to change up what I want. And you can see that I've got that added now. So if I go back into my edit form command, I could pick something like this edge, maybe do the whole loop of edges, and from there I could push and pull. Okay, so one command that I did want to show you here is these space settings. Okay, when I have this edge selected, you can see that it defaults to the world coordinate system. So if you see in the bottom left-hand corner, bottom left, we have the global XYZ triad appearing, and it matches the triad that's appearing in my model. I could also change that to a view or option. So now you can see there's only two triads, and this view triad, this view option pertains only to the view, the 2D view that you're actually looking at. So you can see right now I'm looking at it in a 3D orientation, but if I was to use my view cube and rotate that to a 2D view, it maintains in the X and Y, and now it allows me to actually pull in this view orientation. The same thing, I could switch this way and pull that edge out. So it just gives a little bit more flexibility. One that I really like as well is this third one, and what this is a local option, a local space setting. And this is local to the selected edge in this situation. And if I rotate, you can kind of see that it actually allows me to pull out tangent to that actual edge. Okay, so lots of different controls there in terms of your space settings. So I'm going to select OK and just kind of bring my model back into a 3D orientation where you can see what I did. So I've got a lot more control going on in here. The next thing I want to do is actually delete a few things because I have a little too much control here and I want to actually switch it up a little bit. So I'm going to select this edge. I'm going to select loop because I want both of them that come in touch with one another. I'm going to select OK. Now when I select OK, think about symmetry that I have in the model. So it's actually going to delete the one on the other side as well. So I now have just a few less control frames there. Now I want to actually insert some. I'm going to insert an edge here. And I'm going to insert my edge based on this reference line. So I'm going to select this edge. And you can see the green one is the one that's going to be created. And I mentioned that it's a normalized value. It's normalized between the selected edge and the next one that it would come in contact with. So for example, if I select, enter 0.75, you can see that it goes kind of 3/4 along that distance. I'm going to just maintain it in the center, so enter 0.5, and I'm going to use both sides. Again, the simple and exactor here, I'm not going to worry about that. I just want to manipulate this one little area. I'm going to select OK. And again, symmetry kicks in, and I have my control edges along both sides. Okay, so I could use my edit form command here at any time and go in and make any changes that I wanted there. So I'm going to get back over into my presentation and talk about a few other commands here. The next one that is on that toolbar is the match edge command. And what's really great about this command is it allows you to bring into kind of play a parametric design. So you can see in my images that I have down here, I have a couple sketches. Okay, so there's 1, there's 2, and there's 3 different sketches that I just happen to have in a model. And then I created my freeform model. So my second picture here is my freeform cylinder. And you can kind of see here around the top there's my, my sketch, and there's a sketch at the bottom. Using the match edge command in this third image, I'm actually able to match the edge of my sketch with the edge of the freeform model, and you can see how it manipulates and matches up. Same thing in the center, it's matched up here, and the same thing at the bottom, it's matched up there. Okay, so match edge is a great command for bringing in to use some of the parametrics that you might have in your model. Now, when you create that, it's definitely having to calculate whether or not it can actually mathematically match them based on the geometry. And if sometimes you do get a different command, a sketch that may not match or that might not actually edit, you can use this tolerance command. So I can use that tolerance tool and modify that value to actually get it to work. So you sometimes have to manipulate that with to make your actual match work. And symmetry and clear symmetry, the next two commands. I mentioned symmetry when we created our base feature. And that was super important in terms of if you assigned it at that point, it actually maintained in the model. However, these commands, specifically the symmetry command, enables you to assign temporary symmetry between faces. So a great way, you're working away, you want to make a change, you want it to happen on the other side, you can temporarily put in the symmetry. And then you can use the clear symmetry option to actually remove it. So when you're doing that, it's a simple dialog box. You can see I have it here in the top right-hand corner. You select one face and the other face. So it's pretty obvious in terms of how you create this. And you can see the blue is one reference and the green is the other. And then when I go and actually modify and pull that one face, you can see that the face on the other side also updates. So now over to my third demonstration, and this is where I'm going to show you the match edge and then the symmetry and the clear symmetry option. And I'm going to flip over to my cylinder for this demonstration. This is the one we created a few minutes ago. And I'm going to go into my form, and I'm going to say Edit Freeform. So you can see that only the tools in the Freeform environment are available. Right up here. And when I do that, I'm going to, actually before I do that, you can see that I've got a sketch in here. I'm going to right click and turn on the visibility of that sketch. Right now it's a little tough to see there. If I highlight it, you can see how it was created actually on the sketch plane that I placed this cylinder on, so you can see where it is there. I'm then going to open up the match edge command. And from here, I'm going to select the freeform edge that I want to match to. So I have to actually pick all of the edges in the entire circle. So you can see here that I've got all 4 of them selected. And then I'm going to say match it with, and you can see if I hover my mouse over that other edge, it highlights. And I select them, and it actually worked no problem. So I didn't have to manipulate my tolerance in order to have it work. And everything looks great. So I'm going to select OK. And you can see how it's matched. Okay, so that's how it's manipulated there. Now, the next thing I want to show you there was the symmetry. So first off, I'm going to show you how this model doesn't have any symmetry. So if I do my edit form, I'm going to select this space. I'm going to use the local space setting so that I can pull out normal to the surface. I'm going to pull here, and you can see that my change is only being affected on the one side of my model. So I'm going to undo that and cancel out. And instead what I want to do is I want symmetry because I want this to happen on both sides. So I'm going to select the symmetry option. I'm going to select this face, and then I'm going to select the face on the opposite side. And when it does that, you can see all these gray lines, and that's showing that there's symmetry in the model. Okay, select OK, and you can see that now when I go into my Edit Form dialog box and I choose my face, and translate, you can see that it makes a change on both sides. Okay, so I can select OK, and now my change is on both sides. So if I was to make a change down further and change an edge, again, everything would be symmetrical and it would change on the other side. But what I can do is go in here and click Clear Symmetry. Select my body, and you can see there's no more gray lines. Excuse me for a moment. And now the symmetry has been removed. If I go in here and I select Edit Form, choose a face, say down here, make my change, you can see that it only makes a change on the one side. So that's my symmetry. Okay, so that's what I wanted to show you with this model. So we're pretty much hitting all of our commands. The next one is called the bridge command. And what's really nice here is I've actually been showing you models, so my box and my cylinder, that only have one freeform model created, one freeform shape created in my form feature. But you can actually create multiple features. So you can see in my image that I have here, my form actually has 2 cylinders. And the bridge command enables you to create geometry that goes between them. So it's creating basically all of this geometry. And it does so creating faces, just like what we do with creating those base shapes. Okay, so it's a really creative way to get some different shapes happening in your model. You know, trying to actually create this using, let's say, a box, forcing it to be a box and manipulating everything, it's a lot of work. Here, doing it enables you to get the shape to start with that you really want. The other great tool with Bridge is you can actually bridge to remove material. So this added material, and this one up here actually has removed material. So I have a simple block, and I'm actually going to bridge kind of the 4 faces at the top to the 4 faces at the bottom. And in order to do that, it has to remove material. So it actually creates a material removal there. And that would then be my starting base feature that I could go in and edit. So what I want to do now is just quickly show you a demonstration of both of those bridge features. So just to save a bit of time, what I've done is I've created the 2 shapes. So I'm going to show you here. There's 2 shapes. You see that I only have one form feature. And when I go in and edit it, you can see that the 2 form features are on my model. I can go in, select bridge, and then I can select my faces to bridge between. So there's on one side, and then my green references on this side to bridge to. I'm going to increase the number of faces just to give a bit more refinement, and then select OK. And you can see how it creates there. So the key here, when you're actually going in and selecting your references, they have to be equal. So if you're referencing 4 faces on one side, you want to go to 4 faces on the other. So some of that is a bit tricky in terms of getting things to work exactly right, but you definitely want to make sure you have equal number of entities that you're merging and bridging between. And here's another example. This one I want to show you the material removal. So I have a single box here. I'm going to do Edit Freeform, and I'm going to go in and create my bridge. And here I'm going to remove or select these 4 faces on the top, and then I'm going to select the 4 on the bottom, rotate this around, and select the 4 faces down there. I'll leave, say, 3 faces as the number of faces that will be created as my bridge. And you can see that it creates it by removing the material. Okay, then I could go into my edit form, and I could go and manipulate anything I wanted to here to make changes to the model. Okay, and that's how that works. So if we just cancel out of this and just quickly review what we've talked about, we talked about pretty much all of these edit commands. So we talked about edit form, which is the main reason, the main command that you use to edit your points and your edges and your faces. Insert edge and subdivide, both ways, great ways to manipulate the actual mesh that's in your model so that you can refine your shape. We just talked about the bridge command. Match edge, so if you had an edge or a parametric shape that you wanted to match to, you could use match edge to match your freeform geometry to the parametric geometry. Symmetry, so really key there is that think about the symmetry that's assigned with the base feature stays with the model, it can't be removed. However, if you use it here, it enables you to temporarily assign. And then to clear that temporary assignment, you would use your clear symmetry option. Okay, and the final one is delete, and that enabled you to go in and delete any number of edges from your model to simplify the mesh, something like this. Okay, and then in terms of the 5 shapes, I showed you box and cylinder, and then the sphere, torus, and quad ball are the circular ones, and very much the same workflow that we talked about. Okay, so that's pretty much what I wanted to explain to you in terms of the freeform modeling. So I hope that you enjoyed that and that you got something out of it and that you'll go back to your desks and give it a try. I mentioned that this material was available in our advanced part class, so we have all the exercises and things that we created to support this material in that book. In terms of the AOT training material that we actually create, I just wanted to go over a couple quick things. What we focus on in our books, we definitely want to set objectives for everyone. So as you're actually working through all the material, it's really important that you're understanding what you're going to learn. We set the objectives up front. So you can see here, this one I've just got a little screen grab here of the ones that we talked about today. Certification. So I'm sure all of you have heard of Autodesk certification. We have it marked in our books to help you identify which material is required to know for certification. We also create review questions in the back of our book, so lots of people love to test what they're doing. If you're a trainer, lots of people use those to test their classes and make sure that the knowledge is being passed along. And then as well for instructors, we have our instructor tools. So the instructor tools provide the answers for those questions as well as a timetable for teaching the classes. In terms of the material for 2015, so I've been super busy creating material, and this year I'm excited that we released an update class. So we didn't have one last year because there wasn't a lot of changes between 2013 and 2014. But this year we found that there was enough material that we could create a class. So there's a one-day class now available for everybody, and I hope that it helps teach people what's new in the software. And of course, Freeform Modeling was one of those tools. And then I've got a list here of the other courses, and many of which are available and some of which are coming really soon. So Karine, I'll hand it back over to you.
Perfect. I just wanted to let everyone know that we do have the Inventor courseware available in a printed student guide format, in an ebook format, and as Jen mentioned, in instructor tool format as well. So you can purchase all of these in our online secure e-store, ASCENT'S.com. Jennifer, if you just don't mind going to the next slide. Perfect. Our feedback at ASCENT'Ed.com, their email address if you want to reach us. And we do encourage you to follow us on social media. So if you aren't on Twitter, follow us there for the latest courseware releases and promotions. And if you follow our blog, you'll hear from our ASCENT authors, including Jennifer, where you'll get the inside scoop about the training guides they're working on.